Hello again, it's Cliff here from Down Under. Well, in the last video I talked about ways to remove broken taps. In this video I'm going to talk about ways to avoid ever breaking a tap. This channel Thread Express, in case you're new to it, I try and publish a video every 2 weeks. So I've been doing that for several months now, and I plan to continue on tips and tricks to do with CNC, Toolmax, engineering. So you should get a notification if you're subscribed about every 2 weeks that there's a new video from this crazy guy from Down Under. In the last video we talked about removing broken taps and briefly how to avoid having a broken tap. In this video we're going to go through some more tips and tricks relating to that. We're actually going to break a tap and show you ways that you can avoid ever having another broken tap disaster. Okay, well, let's see if I can do a couple of practical demonstrations to try and explain ways that you can avoid breaking a tap. So I've got a piece of high tensile steel, 4130, drilled a 5mm hole in it, and I've got a very blunt 6mm tap. Let's zoom in on that now. Now, a good way to start the tap straight, because if you go in at a slight angle you have problems, is to turn your spindle on, turn the spindle off, and at the last minute stall the spindle by moving the tap down. Now what that does is, even with a blunt tap, it's relatively safe because you're only cutting maybe 1/4 of a thread. Now that tap is aligned correctly. It's a very blunt tap, and so it's likely to break if I force it. See, that's decidedly borderline. Have a look at that. That is torquing right up. It's just cutting, but it could break any minute. It's springing, and you don't want to get that close to breaking a tap. So what I'll do now is show you how to sharpen it and show you how much easier it is to tap once I'm at that stage. Okay, I'll try and keep this fairly brief because I don't want the video to drag on for too long. So let's just zoom in on here and I'll just quickly go through it. Okay, so first of all, you want to have a sharp grinding wheel. These multi-diamond impregnated little T-bars are excellent. You see that okay? So first of all, dress it to make sure it's razor sharp. Then you're going to grind off the end by about maybe 1/4 of an inch off the end. You're going to grind it like this by rotating it. And then I'm going to grind the chamfer of the cutting edge. It'll be noisy when the machine's running, and so perhaps you won't see much. But the important thing is to get that back off clearance just right. If you've got too much of a rotated back off clearance or an angled back off clearance, the edge will be fragile and it will chip. And if you've got too little, you won't have any clearance and the edge won't cut at all. So you want to get that pretty right. It's not ultra fussy, but you want to get that pretty right, and then try and get all the little angled ends the same. I'll just do it now, but I probably won't talk while it's operating, just to give you a quick idea of it. Okay, here we go. Okay, let's have a look at that now. You can see there the clearance angle, and they're all about the same, probably about 30 degrees off the axis of the tap for most threads, or 45 if you need to bottom it right down to the bottom, something like that. Okay, let's just quickly we'll set the tap square again now. It's not ideal that we've already started the thread in the top, but let's just ignore that. So we're going to cut down. Got that started. Now you'll see how much easier this cuts now. So we're putting an even load on both sides. So that cuts almost like a new tap now. It's a bit awkward working with the camera there, but you get the idea. So I'm doing about half a turn and then backing off. So that tap would have broken before. Now I can just race down to the bottom and all is well. Using that sharpened tap. And now I think we're at the bottom of the hole. I put a fairly short hole in. Now another little trick, I'll just prep it up before I carry on. Okay, so here I've prepared a tap with a deliberate undercut in the shank. So the core diameter of the tap is around about 3 millimeters, so it's a little bit stronger because of the flutes. And I've ground an undercut in the shank of the tap down to about 3 millimeters with a cut-off wheel. Now this is a blunt tap and it's likely to break, so let's just tap down there now. And so let's say you've got a really valuable part. It might be in a difficult grade of stainless steel, and you really don't want to break your tap in it. So what you've got is a sacrificial tap here that allows you to extract it easily if it breaks. Okay, so you know, we've got a difficult bit of steel and we're really worried it's going to break and ruin our part. So let's see what happens now. We've still got a lot of strength, it's tapping, and now we're getting pretty loaded up. It's amazingly strong, that core. Keep going down. It's going to be bottoming in a minute and the tap's really blunt. Here we go. Still going. So you can see that very small diameter, it's quite strong. Alright, so it's broken at the thin down undercut portion. We stick a pair of vice grips on to there and click that on. We can extract the tap and we're okay. That will come out. I just don't want to fiddle around on camera, but you can see that's going to come out. And we haven't ruined our work. So that's a safety device. It's to grind an undercut slightly smaller in diameter than the core diameter of the tap, and you'll break it in an area allowing you to extract the tap after it's broken. One of the key reasons why a tap breaks is poor positional alignment, and it's in the last clips when I was tapping down and demonstrating a sharp and a blunt tap, I wasn't paying much attention to positional alignment because I was just doing a quick demonstration. But that was actually a bad example of tapping down like that, because it's very easy to do one of two fatal mistakes. And one is to go off on an angle, so the tap is slowly screwed down on an angle, and that causes the tap to become increasingly stressed as you go down. It won't follow the hole. It'll tend to cut on an angle, and the further it gets off center, the more stressed the tap is. And another thing you can do is when you're tapping like this is to be just sort of waggling it, and that will put a huge stress on it. So it's much better to have an alignment system. For example, a sliding guide. This is just a sleeve, a simple sleeve. You can turn it up and have like a drill chuck with a parallel shank, and then you can tap down and you've got good guidance there. Now the advantage of this is it holds the tap perfectly in line, and it prevents you from waggling and causing a short-term stress. Because if you're right at the point of breaking a tap because it's very difficult material, then an out of alignment is the last straw, is the fatal blow. So it's really worth having good guidance here with some sort of alignment guide that allows you to have everything perfectly in line. And I use this whenever possible, or a spring-loaded plunger that goes down into the center of the tap, and that way you're just putting a nice even torque on the tap and you're much less likely to break it. So there's lots of reasons that you can break a tap. A very difficult material, the wrong type of cutting oil or no cutting oil, poor positional approach, a blunt tap, waggling the tap, incorrect chip clearing, the wrong type of tap, over bottoming. There's many different reasons for breaking a tap, and most of you guys will know most of those reasons. So I'm just trying to add a couple of tips and tricks to throw into the pile. So when you're tapping, obviously you're going to hold your tap wrench in a balanced way so that you're not pulling it off and bending the tap one way or the other. It's just a true pure torque you want to apply. So you've got your fingers putting an even load on each side, and just work down gently, back off regularly to clear the chip. And the thing is that you need to sort of sense the degree of torque. When you come up to a level of torque that you're uncomfortable with, you'll feel the wrench starting to spring, and just stay clear of getting to that dangerous edge. You know, I'm at a point there where if I go any further it would break, and that would be embarrassing. I'd have to spark it out again. So just don't go there. If it gets a little bit worryingly tight, then take the tap out and inspect it. Look at the edge with a magnifying glass. It's probably dull. If it was razor sharp, it would cut. Take it out, grind the end off, put on sharp little chamfers, go back down, put some cutting oil on, and it'll cut freely. That way you've always got a margin of safety, and you're not going to break a tap ever again. Of course, what I'm talking about here refers to hand taps. And a different approach needs to be taken with gun taps and machine taps, but I'm talking about hand taps here. There's also available taps called series, or I think they may be called series or serial taps, and they have a little groove on the shank, 1, 2, and standard. And so the first one has a reduced diameter of the cutting teeth, so that if you're dealing with tough steels, some grades of stainless steels and tool steels, you can put the number 1 in first, follow it with a number 2, cuts a little bit more thread out, finally a number 3, a standard tap, and it cuts the full thread out. And that also requires a lot less torque and much less chance of breaking your tap. Please note, I'm not saying that a sharpened tap is as good as a new tap and that you never need to buy a new tap. Of course you need new taps, and they are superior to sharpened taps. But there are situations where knowing how to sharpen a tap is very handy. For example, it's on the weekend and your tap's getting blunt and you need to get the job done, and the store's not open until Monday. Or you want to tap some steel that you suspect is hardened and you don't want to shatter the teeth on your brand new tap. So you get an old blunt tap and sharpen it up. Or you have some damaged threads with hardened metal in them and you don't want to wreck a nice sharp tap. So there's plenty of situations where being able to sharpen a tap can be a game changer to get you through the job. Alright, thanks for watching guys. Catch you later.